Good day and welcome to today's webinar, Navigating the Landscape Business Opportunity Analyser to Identify Promising PtX Value Chains. My name is Nicola Bock. I am Events Lead at Agora ThinkTax and welcome you to this webinar. Now, what's on today's plate? We're going to present a fancy new tool. And why do we do this? We have got industrialized economies with very high energy needs, but only limited renewable resource potential in need of renewable hydrogen. And then we have renewable-rich countries with a large potential for green hydrogen development, and that these countries are mostly located in the global south. And both brought together can be a great match, but how does one actually find out where the opportunities are? And we were asking ourselves this question and then commissioned or asked Öko-Institut to develop an Excel-based tool to identify promising power-to-X value chains. And today we've got the developers actually on stage, and they are going to present us how they develop the tool and also walk us through the tool so that we can see actually how it works. And for the moderation, I'd now like to hand over to my colleague Caroline Paul, who is project officer at our hydrogen team at Agora. And I'm very much looking forward to actually seeing how the tool works because I haven't tried it out myself. And Caroline, I hand over the microphone to you and wish everyone a great event.
Thank you, Nicola, and also a very warm welcome to everybody on their screens all over the globe from my side. I'll be guiding you through this webinar on the Business Opportunity Analyser. What awaits you in the next hour and roughly 10 to 15 minutes? We will start with 3 presentations. The first one will set the scene and provide you with the relevant project knowledge and project background on the tool. The second presentation we will have from our colleagues from Öko-Institut, and you will hear about the system boundaries of the Business Opportunity Analyser. So really, this will give you some information on how the tool was developed and also on this extensive data research that went into it. Finally, you will get a very interesting session today, a very hands-on session. You will receive a guided tour through the Business Opportunity Analyser and see the most important functions and how it really actually works. And hopefully by the end of this third session, which will also be delivered by Öko-Institut, you will have somewhat of an appetite for also using this tool afterwards for your own country case. The tool will be released later on today, so please check our website regularly. In case somebody does drop the term BOA, this is how we refer to as the tool in our daily work, so just making sure you're aware of this in case somebody drops this abbreviation. We will have time for a 20-minute Q&A session after the presentations. So please do feel encouraged to already post your questions that may arise during the presentations into the Q&A box, as said before, and we will sort them out in the back end, and they will appear in the Q&A session. After this Q&A session, we will have some closing remarks from Agora Energiewende, and you will be let off to the rest of your day. Before we go into the presentation, let me please introduce to you all the presenters. And I would like to call to the virtual stage Emir Çolak as the first presenter. Hi, Emir. Emir is a project officer hydrogen at Agora Energiewende, and he has accompanied the development of the BOA, of the Business Opportunity Analyser, from its very early stages. Maybe some of the audience already is familiar with his face, since he's already presented the tool to different audiences internationally. Secondly, Dr. Matthias Deutsch. Can I call you to the stage? Hi, Matthias. Matthias is leading the hydrogen program at Agora, and I think we can say that he certainly shares the same passion as Emir about the tool and about the release that we will have today. He will provide you with the closing remarks later on. Next in line, Dr. Roman Mendelevich. Could you please turn on your camera? Hi, Roman. Thank you. Roman is a senior researcher, energy and climate at Öko-Institut, and he has been involved in the project as a co-lead for data and parameters. Last but not least, Dr. Markus Haller. Could you turn on your screen? Thank you. Markus, likewise, is a senior researcher, energy and climate, and has also co-led the tool development. So this man is essentially the technical brain, and you can call him probably an Excel genius, who has built the tool and give you the guided tour through the Business Opportunity Analyzer later on. Apart from these panelists, may I please briefly also call Christoph Heinemann, Susanne Krüger, both from Öko-Institut, as well as Nora Rauschke from Agora Energiewende to the virtual stage. Thank you. You are here because I would also really like to give credit to you, because one way or another, you all have been involved in the development of the Business Opportunity Analyzer and or are supporting us in the back end with this webinar. So thanks very much. And you see that developing something like this is really a group effort. Yes. So now, everybody, could I please ask everyone to turn off their cameras except for Emir, who will now give you the first input on what you can expect from the Business Opportunity Analyzer. And yes, the brief introduction. Emir, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much, Caro, for the introduction. I hope my screen is visible for all of you. Yeah, okay, all right. So yeah, and also big thanks for everyone who joined from different parts of the world. Before we delve further into the capabilities of the tool, I would like to provide you an understanding of the context of the project, as well as to offer you some guidance on how to interpret the results. So let's begin. But before that, let me say some few words about Agora Energiewende. We are an independent think tank with a diverse financing structure, and with more than 150 energy transition experts, we all share a common vision, a prosperous and a climate neutral economy, global economy by 2050. And to put our project into the context, Agora is partner of PtX Hub, and PtX Hub is the center of excellence for renewable hydrogen and PtX within the GIZ. The PtX Hub consists of different projects and supports the development of sustainable PtX markets as a building block for the energy transition in the partner countries such as South Africa, Morocco, Argentina, among others. These projects are carried out by local and international partners with the aim to support the sustainable PtX applications in the regions. As partners of the PtX Hub, we do aim to contribute to the discussion on the priorities and the next steps that are part of the decision-making process in order to maximize the local benefits of scaling up renewable hydrogen in the partner countries. And we are also well aware that while the export of molecules do represents a key opportunity for countries on the global south, it is equally important that this PtX economy helps rather than hindering the potential PtX export countries' own decarbonisation journeys. And if I may, let me just give you two examples right here. We have just released our 12 Insights on Hydrogen Argentina edition and carried out energy system analysis for Argentina, where we try to discover the role of molecules in the country's decarbonisation journey. And similar to what we have done in Argentina, please stay tuned for the energy system analysis for South Africa and, of course, further projects in Morocco. Please get in touch with us if you're interested with these. And as I mentioned, some countries may need to import PtX products in the future due to their limited renewable energy potentials. And of course, this will imply a global trade potential. To unlock this potential, we believe that collaboration between a plethora of stakeholders across different geographies, governments, and industries is needed to unlock this potential. And with a purpose to increase this collaboration, we have developed the Business Opportunity Analyser, which aims to assist the potential export countries to understand their competitive advantage in the global PtX market at a pre-feasibility level. So, to put in a simple words, the BOA will enable users to calculate the delivered cost of PtX molecules from an export country to an import country, and will be able to connect the techno-economic analysis with the relevant information on their certification schemes and, of course, on the relevant sustainability issues. While the BOA's objective is to serve as an analytical tool on PtX, we are also well aware that it cannot replace local knowledge, and it's therefore BOA is flexible enough to accommodate the local data inputs. And within the spirit of this cooperation, we have put the stakeholder involvement as a building block for our tool development. We have conducted several workshops with our partner countries with an aim to gather their insights, perspectives, and feedbacks on our assumptions in the tool. Within these meetings, the country-specific assumptions are furtherly scrutinized, validated, parameterized for and with the political experts, the policymakers, the industry representatives, and the local experts. And before I finish my presentation, I also want to show you the different levels of detail for the assessing hydrogen costs. And I will try to walk through overview with the slide. If we started from the bottom, the lowest level, we can also refer to this level as the pre-feasibility level. And this is where our tool actually fits. Our tool is designed for users to learn about the business opportunities, to discuss with the investors and just start the discussion on the ground with the policymakers on the potential projects. And with this higher level of analysis at this pre-feasibility level, we were also able to obtain a higher level of cost comparison among producing countries. All we have used is the publicly accessible and traceable data. And we are also well aware that as the level of detail increases with the site-specific project and financial details, we would probably get much more closer to the actual price, the market price of hydrogen. However, this will require commercial, confidential, and site-specific data. And with this information, I would like to leave the floor back to Caro for the next steps of our webinar and looking forward to our Q&A session. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Emir, for your presentation, which really set the scene for today's webinar and for giving us this background information. Next in line is Roman. Could you please turn on your camera? There you are. We will now hear a presentation from Roman about the system boundaries and the data parameters that went into the Business Opportunity Analyser. Roman, the floor is yours.
Thanks a lot, Caroline. Also from my side, a warm welcome to the event. We are really eager to present our work of the last months to you, and let me jump right into it. I hope you can see my screen now. As for the agenda, we kept it really short. Emir is just coming from giving you a general introduction into the PtX BOA, and now we will dive right into the tool itself. In the first part, I will warm you up a little bit with some explanations of what is actually in the tool and what we decided to leave out deliberately. And then in the second part, my colleague Marcus will really take you on a tour through the tool and walk you step by step to introduce various features and the general handling. And in the end, we will have the Q&A, and Caroline will explain how it works later on. But as a cliffhanger here, let me tell you something about the Öko-Institut. On the picture, you can see the beautiful building in Freiburg where the institute is located, and it goes by the nice name Solar Ship. And this ship, together with other ships in Darmstadt and Berlin, is sailing we're together with more than 200 colleagues, and we're all on a voyage to foster all aspects of sustainability and sustainable transition. In the department where I'm based, the scientists work on crafting the energy system that does without nuclear power. And since April this year, we can at least tick the box in Germany. And instead, we focus on promoting energy efficiency and the focus on low carbon and renewable energy sources. The other departments, they focus on sustainable transportation, circular economy, and issues all related to environmental law, governance, nuclear safety. The teams are very diverse, integrating different views, including engineers, natural scientists, economists, and social scientists. And so are our clients. They include national, regional, local authorities. We work with companies and corporations, but we do also work a lot with international institutions such as the European Commission, the European Parliament, development banks, and environmental NGOs. So much about who we are, but now I guess you're eager to learn more about the tool. So what can you expect from the PtX Business Opportunity Analyser? The tool can help you to get an impression of total delivered cost of hydrogen, but also various derivative molecules from your country of interest to a potential country where the demand is located. And then if you zoom in, you can analyze the cost components of the various chains and product routes and really understand what is the cost drivers and identify and figure out what can be important to work on, or how does it compare to other routes or supply destinations. And then when comparing costs between various production paths, supply and demand countries on a global scale, the tool gives you really a lot of freedom in setting together comparisons and give you a neat overview. And depending on your question at hand, and also your specific expertise, you might actually want to change some input data in the tool and see how things actually change and evolve. And this is also possible. And one particular feature I actually also wanted to highlight is that the tool has a comprehensive set of background and context information covering issues all around sustainability, the strategies of importing countries, regulations, and certification schemes. So the following slides, they are meant to help you understand how to use the tool and how to interpret the results correctly. They cover important aspects in each process steps, and I will briefly say what we have included or what we have left out. But please note that this overview is not comprehensive at all. So in the sense that it gives you an overview of all assumptions at one glance. Rather, the points listed are aspects that have emerged during the discussion with stakeholders in previous workshops, discussion and workshops with deep dive countries in other contexts prior to the publication of the tool. And therefore, we decided to do this illustration that helps ordering the thoughts. Let me start on the general level. Clearly, the tool focuses on costs, calculating the landing costs of various PtX products delivered from a supply to demand country. Internally, it calculates levelized costs of electricity, levelized costs of hydrogen, but also levelized costs for secondary inputs like direct air capture and water from seawater desalination. The tool itself, it features weighted average costs of capital that are country specific and taken from international and publicly available source. On the other hand, what we deliberately left out of the tool is the the potential. So the tool does not calculate any production potentials. I will come to this when I specify and talk more about electricity generation in a second, but I really wanted to highlight this already at this point. Also, what is really important to understand, the tool is, there is no system optimization for different components of the chain. So we do derive full load hours based on optimal configurations taken from the literature, but there is no system optimization of different capacities for the installations along the process chain. And also I wanted to raise right away, by default, the costs displayed in the tool, they refer to the landing cost of the respective molecule or PtX product. So there's no default conversion back to hydrogen, with one exception. This is for LOHC, where it only serves as a carrier, and of course what can be used afterwards or in the end is the hydrogen itself. And lastly, on this general note, the tool is not GIS based, but rather it works with regional or country averages that are derived from geo-referenced data taken from the literature. Let me now zoom in a little bit into the different segments of the process chain and start with electricity generation. The tool features specific full load hours for different renewable electricity technologies. CAPEX and OPEX are also country specific and do decline based on global learning curves over time. On the other hand, note that the costs for electricity transmission for the RES-E plant to deliver electricity to the electrolyzers and other electricity demands is not included. Rather, we assume that there are short distances between the RES-E plant and electricity consumption. For the electrolyzers, our cost results, they also include reinvestment in the stack during the lifetime of the electrolyzers, as well as balance of plant. And this is one important reason why our results tend to be on the upper edge when you compare the results to others in the literature. Technological learning and assumed economies of scale are included, leading to a reduction in CAPEX and an increase in efficiency over time. The full load hours of the electrolyzer is actually tuned to the respective RES-E supply. But on the side where we highlight what is not included, there's no internal calculation of the required storage that actually balances between RES-E and the electrolyzer capacity. But rather the storage costs there are added as a top up on the final cost. But here we distinguish, and the cost top up depends on the selected RES-E source, the electrolyzer type, and also the process chain. Next in line is the derivative production. And like with electrolyzers, technology learning and assumed economies of scale are included, leading to reduction in CAPEX and an increase in efficiencies for the various derivative supply chains. CO2 supply via direct air capture and cost of external heat supply are also accounted for and internally calculated in the tool. The full load hours for the derivative production, again, is tuned to the full load hours of the RES-E supply and the specific electrolyzer technology. But like with the electrolyzers, here with the derivative production, there's no internal calculation of required hydrogen storage capacities, but rather the storage costs, they are add up on top on the final cost, again, depending on RES-E source, electrolyzer type, and the process chain. And last but not least, transportation. For hydrogen and methane, you can choose between ship and pipeline transport, where pipeline transport is possible and makes sense. The costs are distance specific and take into account the boil off when you select the ship, and also give you the opportunity to select the use of the own fuel for the propulsion of the ship. The transportation costs within the country, for example, electricity transmission, transport of hydrogen or derivatives to the export harbors, and so on and so forth, they are not included in the costs. And with the exception of buffer storage in the supply and demand countries, also auxiliary infrastructure like ports are not included in the cost calculations. If that was too quick for you, don't worry. Alongside with the tool, there is a data documentation with more information on the calculations, on data sources, and on the methodology. And it will be published together with the tool, so you will be able to follow the steps and understand how things are calculated. And now, finally, I would give over to Markus, who will dive into the tool with you.
Markus, could you come to the screen? Brilliant. As Roman said, you will now finally get, I think, the most interesting presentation of today, which is the tour through the tool. Markus, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Caro. So I'm sharing my screen. I hope everybody can see the Excel file. Yeah, hello everyone, and thank you for being with us today. I will walk you through the key features of the tool. So if you open the Excel file, you will see this sheet, which is the dashboard. And this is where you can choose your settings on the left-hand side and see key results on the right-hand side. And the first thing that you will want to do if you use the tool is to select a supply country or region, a demand country, and the molecule that you wish to produce. And there are 35 supply countries to choose from, as well as sub-regions for the 3 deep dive countries that we looked into, Morocco, Argentina, and South Africa. So I choose Morocco as a supply country. You see, if you make changes here, the results change correspondingly on the right-hand side. Costs are calculated for all supply regions so that you can compare them. However, for the selected supply region, you can make some additional settings and you get some additional results. The demand country, you can choose from 9 different demand countries. We'll choose Germany. And we have a comprehensive list of molecules that can be selected, ranging from hydrogen to e-fuels or green iron. For now, we'll choose methane, and in brackets behind, you choose the electrolyzer type you wish to use. So now we are producing methane using the AEL electrolyzer technology. Next, for your chosen supply country, you can choose the renewable electricity source. You can choose between photovoltaics, wind offshore, wind onshore, or hybrid wind onshore PV sites. That's what I'm going to choose now. And last, you can choose the input data set. We provide input data for 2030 and 2040, each with 3 variants, high, medium, and low cost expectations. So we stick with the 2030 and medium cost range. And now you can check the results on the right-hand side. On top, you see a map with all supply countries color-coded by total costs of delivery. In this case, the cost range is between 1,700 and 4,000 US dollar per ton of methane. And below, you see a cost distribution graph, where you can see that the costs of Morocco are in the lower above range. And for Morocco, your chosen supply country, you can see a split up of costs. In this case, electricity generation is the largest cost component. Okay, below here, there are some additional settings that you can choose from. You can select which carbon and water source you would like to use. You can either use direct air capture for carbon and water desalination plants for water, or you can import both into your system at specific costs. And you can choose your mode of transportation. Shipping is always available. And if you transport hydrogen or methane, and if the transportation distance is below 6,000 kilometers, you can also choose to transport it by pipeline. Given our current setting, this is the case. So we can switch to pipeline here. If you choose shipping as an option, you can also decide whether to use the transported product as ship fuel or whether you want to use bunker fuel. And lastly, you can switch the output units between US dollar per ton or US dollar per megawatt hour, whatever you prefer. Those are the key settings, and you can try different settings and examine the results without leaving the dashboard. And then you can dive into the details, which we're going to go to do now. For example, you can get a breakdown of costs by cost component for your own country on the left-hand side, as well as for your main potential competitors, which are the 10 cheapest supply countries ranked by costs. In this case, the cheapest one is Spain, the most expensive one, Colombia. And in this sheet, like in most other sheets, you will find figures on top, and you will find the data in tabular form below. We try to make everything as intuitive as possible, so all the sheets are structured in a similar way. You get a blue info box on top with a short explanation of what this sheet is about, and a list of the settings that you chose in the dashboard. A print button that lets you export this sheet as a PDF file, and a button that leads you back to the dashboard. So ideally, you never have to use the sheet navigation that Excel provides, but you can always use the buttons to move around the tool. You can get a quick overview of all supply and demand countries on the market scanning sheet. This shows you on the left-hand side all supply countries positioned by shipping distance to the chosen demand country on the x-axis and total costs on the y-axis. And to the right, you see all demand countries positioned by distance to your supply country and projected hydrogen demand in 2030, if such data is available. Like always, tabular data is below. You can access another representation of how supply regions compare in terms of costs by clicking here, which shows you again the total costs distribution on the left and the distribution of various cost components on the right: electricity generation, electrolysis, transportation by ship or pipeline, and other cost components. And likewise, you will find here a comparison of input data that is region specific. Same structure as before, and you get distribution graphs for the weighted average cost of capital, the full load hours for renewable power generation, and for electrolyzers and derivative production processes, as well as capital expenditures for renewable electricity generation processes and shipping distances. All these parameters are region-specific in our model. And if you choose one of the 3 deep dive countries, Morocco, Argentina, or South Africa, as a supply country, you get a drill down on the total costs and full load hours for the sub-regions of this chosen country on this graph and sheet. Okay, what if you want to compare the costs of exporting to different countries or producing different products. That's what these yellow buttons are for. They are yellow because calculating these results takes some time. So you need some patience when you click on one of them. For example, this button lets you compare the costs of exporting to different demand countries. Click it, takes a few seconds to calculate, get the process bar below. And once it's finished, you see the total costs of delivering methane from Morocco to all the demand countries there are in the tool. For example, in this graph, you can see that the pipeline transport option is only available for Germany, Spain, France, and Netherlands, the European demand countries. And for the other demand countries, transport by ship is activated, and transportation costs are significantly higher. Back to the dashboard. The other buttons let you compare costs by product, by renewable electricity source, and by data scenario. I won't click on them now. Try them out after the webinar when you download the tool and see what you can find. So the tool calculates costs, but it does more than that. It also contains a lot of contextual information that you find useful, and I will give you an overview of that. First, directly on the dashboard here in this info box, you see some key information on the demand country that you selected. In this case, it's Germany. And you see the projected hydrogen demand in 2030, if such data is available, and some key facts on this country. This link leads you to a more detailed fact sheet on Germany in this case, where you'll find a lot of information on the current hydrogen strategy, certification schemes that are relevant, and links for further reading. Clicking on this button gives you supplementary information on sustainability issues that should be considered when producing hydrogen or derived molecules. And the button next to it gives you supplementary information on certification schemes, regulations, and standards that are relevant in certain demand countries. You get an overview on top, which regulation is relevant in which country or region, and a lot of detailed information with a list of references and links below. So if you still want more, there are some additional functionalities that are hidden by default to keep the interface uncluttered, but you can activate them by using these buttons. If you want to know more about the input data, you can click here, and then you can view data for all electricity generation and transformation processes, global defaults, country-specific data, conversion coefficients, and likewise, you can examine the data on transportation processes, pipelines, and ships. And you get another interface for inspecting all the data that is relevant for the process chain that you chose. I don't go into details here, just let you know that this information exists if you're interested in it. And lastly, if you feel unhappy about the input data that is provided by us, or if you have different sources that you would like to change into account, this button allows you to modify the input data. Click on this button, you can modify the weighted average cost of capital and the specific costs of carbon dioxide, water, heat, and bunker fuel. And for each parameter, you can either define a global default or a value that is specific for your own chosen supply country, in this case, Morocco. On the right-hand side, you see the data that is provided in the 6 default scenarios by us, with the active scenario highlighted. In the green area, you see the data that is currently used for the calculations, and in the blue area, you can enter your own data. Just to give you a simple example, if you wish to calculate with a reduced weighted average cost of capital of 2%, just for Morocco, you enter the data here. You click on the Save button to apply the changes, which takes a bit. Yellow buttons always need you to wait a moment. Okay, then you see the change has been applied. The tool uses 2% weighted average cost of capital for Morocco. If we turn back to the dashboard, you see that the costs for Morocco have decreased significantly. There is a similar interface for editing the data for processes. So you can choose a process up here, and then you can change the capital expenditure, the OPEX, lifetime efficiency, full load hours for renewables, and other parameters if they are applicable. And lastly, you can use this button to reset all data to default values. Okay, just some last technical advice to keep in mind when you try out the tool for yourselves. You need to enable macros for the tool to work. If you have trouble enabling macros, which often happens, we included a link to Microsoft guidelines on how to deal with this issue. And we also recommend that you do not have any other Excel files open while working with the tool, as this could increase calculation times significantly. And this concludes our tour. Thank you for taking your time. I'm giving the floor back to Caro and looking forward to your questions and feedback.
Thank you very much, Markus, for this very exciting tour when you took us by the hand through the Business Opportunity Analyser. I would now like to ask Roman and Emir to turn their cameras back on and segue to the question and answer session. Easing into the discussion, I would like to ask my colleague Emir if you can share one exciting learning. You've been accompanying this project for quite a while now. What is something that you really took out from this joint endeavor that you didn't know before?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Caro. I would say one key aspect that stood out for me was the emphasis on considering local context and conditions when assessing the cost of PtX production in different countries. For instance, stakeholders from several countries stress that the importance of imposing their own local values for different parameters, like capital expenditures or weighted average cost of capital. And as we are using global data sets as a default, we may differentiate from the CapEx value from an RECI plant with the local project developer within the country X, for example. Or similarly, we could deviate from the discount rate that has been given to an international project developer in a certain country. And this discussion also arose on our stakeholder workshop, and I think it has made the tool's adjustability function very much important, which as Markus has shown on the tour.
Thank you very much, Emir. Likewise, I'd like to ask Markus or Roman, what is one thing that you really like about the BOA?
We spend a lot of effort not just presenting you with some numbers that are somehow calculated, but putting the results in context and allowing users to compare calculations for different countries, for different products, and also to add contextual information wherever this is possible. And that's something that I like about the tool, and I hope that it helps users to gain insights from it.
Thank you very much. We will continue with a question from the Q&A box about modification of country-specific parameters. So is it possible to modify some of the country-specific parameters, for example, full load hours or LCOE or weighted average cost of capital?
Yes, that is possible, just like I have shown in the introduction. So you can change the full load hours of renewables and the weighted average cost of capital. not the LCOE, because that isn't an input parameter to the tool. It's calculated based on the capital expenditure and operation expenditure of the renewables. But the other two parameters can be changed.
Thank you very much. Another question from the Q&A box is on emissions. Did you also calculate the emissions for each scenario?
Let me take this one, Caroline. For now, no. The tool calculates the costs, but in the background we have actually all the information necessary to do that, because we have the efficiency losses on the way through the process chain, and we also have the secondary energy inputs, and we also have the electricity input that is internally integrated in the calculations. So the tool is equipped with all the necessary data, but we did not do the calculations at this point.
Okay, thanks for clarifying this question. We have another question on a comparison of import versus domestic production. So the question is, wouldn't it make sense to always include in the list of competitors of the country of destination, in this case Germany, to compare imports versus domestic production?
Should I take this one? So sure. I think yes and no. So for now, the focus of the tool was actually to compare to connect potential supply countries with potential demand countries, and to enable potential exporters to find their position in supplying different molecules to different locations. It is not from the so we basically, or the tool takes the perspective of the exporter and not the perspective of the importer in countries that picks the cheapest supplier. But so this taken, I think it's actually possible to bring up the costs of production in the respective country, if the country is now included in the tool already.
Thank you, Roman. And one hint to the audience, we still have a little bit of time for question and answers. So if you do have questions, please raise them in the Q&A box before going on to the next question. This one I would guide to EMEA. It's on the selection of the countries which are included in the BOA. So how did you select those countries? And also, is there an option to add new countries?
Yeah, many thanks for this question. In the beginning of the project, we screened potential future export and import countries and agreed with PtX Hub on a final list of countries to be integrated in our tool. And for our deep dive countries, our partnership with the PtX Hub has a special focus on South Africa, Morocco, and Argentina. Unfortunately, the users cannot add a specific country on their own to the tool. However, depending on the requests and the demand from our users, we would consider to add missing countries in the tool, of course.
Thank you very much. There is a question on, is blue hydrogen included in the tool? How are you dealing with this? Who would like to take that?
That's an easy one. No.
All right. The next question is a rather political one. I would guide this question to Matthias, since it's about the global hydrogen hype. So the question goes, is Agora now part of the global hydrogen hype and promoting a neo-colonialist agenda?
That's an interesting question. I would say within the Business Opportunity Analyser, we really address several things, or we try to address them. So we also address questions of sustainability and certification aspects that include something like carbon intensity. And that's one aspect. The other aspect is that our work overall at Agora is much broader than just the Business Opportunity Analyser. So we do conduct, and Emir referred to that in his introduction, we conduct more comprehensive energy system analysis in the deep dive countries like Argentina or South Africa. And there, in this broad analysis, we cover both electrons and molecules. And in total, I would say we evaluate as Agora different aspects of hydrogen development, and that includes opportunities and challenges, and always with the concept in mind that hydrogen is really secondary to direct electrification. And I think with this spirit in mind, we don't see ourselves as part of some kind of hype, but rather a more nuanced discussion. At the same time, we acknowledge that some countries, according to the best kind of science and science-based scenarios, will need to import, even if they make a huge effort to produce molecules at home. Germany is among those countries. And then to this question of neocolonialism that might be built in, I do believe we have tried our best here to include perspectives from the Global South, to have as much interaction with stakeholders in the deep dive countries as possible. So that includes stakeholders in Argentina, in Morocco and South Africa. And also the tool itself mentions this explicit sustainability aspects. It refers to water, to carbon sources. So I think this tool is not a promotion of the global hydrogen hype.
Thank you, Matthias, for making that clear. I have another question which refers to this very fast technological and political development that we are seeing in the field of hydrogen. So do you think, and this question should go to our colleagues from Öko-Institut, do you think that the tool will be outdated next year?
That's a fair point. And I think it will if we don't do anything against it. So we are planning regular updates over the next 2 years at least. And yeah, this is why we also ask you for your email address when you download the tool, so that we can stay in contact and that we can notify you about changes that we make, which will most likely happen.
All right, we still have a little time left for the Q&A session. So anybody from the audience, please raise your most important questions now before being able to use the tool yourself. If you had one wish, also a question for Öko-Institut, what would you improve in the tool the next time?
I could also take this one. So, yeah, I think it was a real challenge to implement this in Excel, and I would very much like to move this to a web app that would make the interface more user-friendly and would make it much easier to update, which is an important issue, and to implement new features as well. Yeah.
That's great. And I think we will hear some words on this topic later on. Okay. There are no more questions from the Q&A box. So a little earlier than anticipated, I would like to close the Q&A session. Thank you all very much for your answers and also for the questions from the audience. And with this, we would come to the next point, which are the closing remarks from Matthias, which means everybody except for Matthias can switch off their videos. And Matthias, over to you.
Thank you so much, Caroline, for hosting us here today. And actually, this will be my role now to say again, thank you to several people, saying thanks primarily and first of all to the PtX Hub with our partners and stakeholders especially in the 3 deep dive countries, in Argentina, in Morocco and South Africa. I think this would not have been possible without their support in developing this tool. Thank you to the dedicated colleagues at Öko-Institut who have delivered more than we could have hoped for in this whole tool development. Thank you to Emir, who has steered from Agora's side throughout the entire process, which is quite a complex project, as I've seen it developing and unfolding. Thanks to Caro, to Nicola, Nora, Maxi, all those who have contributed to this webinar to get it going. And finally, there are 3 other colleagues who have helped us a lot. Leandro, our colleague Zafar, who's working on Africa, our colleague Fabian, who's working on Latin America. All this has been fed into the development of the tool. And as you may have heard or not, but the tool will be available for download later today. So along with the user guide and the video tutorial, I would say stay tuned, and also stay tuned for what's maybe coming in the future. I've heard a certain wish to move from a spreadsheet tool to something more elaborate, maybe a web app. And I would say, let's see what we can do in that respect. And with that, handing over back to Caro. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Matthias, for the closing remarks. I would hand it back to our host, Nicola.
Yes, thanks a lot, everyone. Also to the audience for joining today's webinar.